My name is Jay Atkins. I am First Assistant Attorney General at the Attorney General's office. Our office has been mentioned a number of times in testimony, so I would be happy to answer any question. I will keep my comments brief. I think this bill undermines the rule of law and is a miscarriage of justice, and if what's worse is it's doing it on the backs of victims. There's no mention in here about victims' rights or victims' access to these processes. I would take exception with the proposition that it is a foregone conclusion that the state would have a seat at the table in this. The legislation is not drafted that way. I would remind this committee that under 547-031 that was passed 4 years ago, our office has been to the Supreme Court on that case no fewer than 7 times to make sure that the state has the proper opportunity to be heard and represent the integrity of the underlying conviction in these cases. So the Attorney General's office, we have met with Representative Violet on this. We've shared our concerns. We are happy. She is committed to continue to work with us on this language. We are happy to do that, welcome those conversations. As of now and for the foreseeable future, our office will remain strenuously opposed to what we think is a very bad bill, both on its terms and as a matter of public policy. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Representative?
That undermines our system of justice.
Well, and I guess going back to your original statement about these disingenuous claims. I mean, if people are availing themselves of the process that's currently in place, I don't see how you could say it's disingenuous when you just before that said that was the appropriate remedy if they got out. So obviously, if people are filing their claims and they're getting out, and you think that's appropriate, it's not disingenuous.
Yeah, and they're doing it under the laws. They're doing it under the laws that already exist, Representative.
Right,
so
right.
you're making my point. You're making my point for me.
And so we add one more step.
Yeah, how many are we going to add? When do we get finality for victims? When do we get finality for victims, Representative?
If somebody,
when do victims get a throw the flag?
This is my inquiry, gentlemen. So if somebody was doing 40 years in prison and it was an inconvenience to the court, I mean, the courts are paid to do this. And if they don't want the petition, if they don't have to have a hearing. So it's one more piece of paper.
Well, they do have to have a hearing under this bill.
No, not necessarily. If from what I've heard the testimony, unless the testimony was incorrect, they don't necessarily have to grant a hearing. Maybe they do. I thought the testimony said they didn't. But if it's an inconvenience and they already have paperwork, left and right. If one person gets out, if one person was doing 30 years and they got out and they actually didn't do it, wouldn't it be worth it for the inconvenience the court may have to review a few other petitions, even 1,000 other petitions, even 2,000 petitions? Say they did have to review 90,000 petitions, but 7 of them, someone got out. You don't think that would be worth it?
So 2 things. One, my point is, we've heard testimony that within the framework we already have that those people have gotten out and gotten clemency, and so you're making my point for me.
Those are
exists.
people on death row, gentlemen, not people who were not sentenced to death. I'm talking about people who are not sentenced to death now that make it a life sentence.
Yep.
And sometimes people plead because they don't want to get the death penalty, so they plead to a sentence so they don't get out of prison.
But non-death penalty cases, the problem that this body tried to solve with 547-030. But at least there you have a prosecutor as a backstop. Here you don't even have that.
I guess what concerns me, gentlemen, is it concerns me of your tone. I mean, you represent the Attorney General, and you're talking about people who could potentially be innocent, and you're coming in here in almost a hostile manner, talking about miscarriage of justice. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I find that's disgusting, especially if there's people that are actually innocent. And I would think there'd be a little more give and play. You might be down the middle on the issue and be more open-minded. But to come in here with a hostile attitude and call it a miscarriage of justice, I think is frankly gross.
Sure.
From our state.
Sure. And Representative, all due respect, you're discounting what my opening statement was, which is happy to work with folks on the language here. We will, if this is a problem that needs addressed, I am not convinced that it is, but if this is a problem that needs convinced, we are happy to work on this. The reality is, we worked with the Innocence Project 2 years ago and came up with compromise language that would address this problem, and we were willing to get behind, and they walked away from it, and then came back 2 years later with a whole new group of legislators and are trying to slide this by again. This undermines our system of justice in a way worse than any bill I have ever seen.
Thank you, gentlemen.